Hey friends, today I'm going to be introducing a helpful research tool called the CRAP criteria. The CRAP criteria is a helpful strategy for evaluating and selecting the appropriate sources in your researched argument paper. However, this is also a very useful tool, or will be a useful tool in your future classes, as well as, for example, in your everyday life when you are, say, reading the news, right? How do you gauge whether or not a news source is appropriate, is worthy, is credible? But specific to this unit right now, this strategy will be helpful for the upcoming source evaluation group activity with your pods. Following that, the WTL for applying CRAP to a popular source. Now, the second line, you need to complete the library modules first, because you will then be finding sources for your researched argument. So remember, you're going to need 2 popular sources and 2 scholarly sources, minimum. Again, the library modules are going to help you discern the difference between those. So quick overview of what CRAP stands for. We have currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Currency is the timeliness of the publication or post. We've talked a little bit about this in class. Depending on the nature of your topic, the most recent evidence or sources are going to be necessary versus for some studies, for example, maybe on the history of something, older sources would make sense. But ask yourself these questions. When was the information published? Has it been revised? Very often blogs or even newspapers, right, like online newspapers, as the news is unfolding, they will write the article, and then as they learn things, right, they correct the article, and they'll tell you at the bottom, updated on this day, and they often will tell you what was changed. How well does the information mesh up with other sources on the same topic, right? So this is where you're looking at the differences and similarities between your topics. And does the topic require the most up-to-date information? Relevance is how important the information is for your particular argument. Does the information relate to your topic or help answer that inquiry question? Who was the intended audience, and how does that intended audience compare to who you may be imagining so far as your audience? Is the information at an appropriate level? So think again about the difference between, say, a scientist and the average parent when talking about, for example, hormones and development of teenagers, right? I mean, those are very different groups who are going to need different, levels of background. Have you looked at a variety of sources before you determined this is one that you will use for your paper, right? You don't want to choose articles just because they mention something, right? It's got to work together with your information. And would you be comfortable citing this source in your paper? Authority is talking about where the information comes from and how reliable it is. So who is the author, publisher, or other source? What are the credentials, right? Is it a professor that works with a specific university? Maybe they're the editor of particular of journals, right? For example, David Zinczenko worked for Men's Health, Women's Health, all these sort of things that help build his credibility. Is there contact information, right, such as a publisher email address? If you're having trouble tracking down the author or the source, right, if there's sort of very little about where it came from, that's a reason to doubt the credibility. And does the URL reveal anything about the author of the source? So there is a document listed in the source evaluation activity which has some information on these URLs at the bottom, right? The difference between .com and .gov, for example. Accuracy is about reliability, truthfulness, correctness. Is there information supporting the evidence? Are the claims supported by the evidence? Are there other sources which can help confirm the accuracy? Has it been reviewed or refereed? This is particularly important for a scholarly article, and again, the library modules are going to help explain that. And does the language or tone seem unbiased or free of emotion, right? This is something that you're especially going to want to strive for, right, to attempt with your researched argument. Now, the last criteria is purpose. Why does the source exist, and what is it trying to do? You'll remember from the rhetorical situation, purpose as being that to plus a verb, right? Inform, teach, sell. What is it aiming for? Are those intentions clear? Do the authors sort of own up and say, this is what I want you to take away from this? Whether it's the opinion or even an action, right? Is the information a fact, an opinion, or propaganda, right? Something that can be proved, something that comes from the self, and something that essentially tends to, right, indoctrinate or change people's minds in a negative way. Does the point of view appear objective and impartial, and are there any influences behind it? Political, ideological, cultural, what are the values that are driving potentially this source? So after completing this activity, after watching this video, you can complete the source evaluation practice on Canvas. There's actually not a document, there's just a link of sources, several sources. And you're going to want to open each source with your group and evaluate it, ranking it of 1 to 5, 1 being very unreliable, 5 being the most reliable. Create a bullet list of reasons for why you rated each source the way you did, right? Essentially giving evidence for your decision. You can use the CRAP criteria notes to help with your source evaluation, as well as that document of URLs. Submit your rankings as a post, not a Word document, not a PDF, just a text post to the discussion board, which is the assignment. You'll submit to the assignment and others will be able to see it. And then with your group, find another group to compare your rankings and justifications. You don't need to comment, you don't necessarily need to engage, but I would like you guys to, compare so that you can figure out where you do or don't disagree. Someone else's ranking choices may prompt you to revisit and say, oh yeah, actually, that source isn't as credible as I thought it was.